There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch, Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, 27-year veteran. You know, folks, when we look into the Cassi Carli case and other violence cases against women, we ask a lot of questions. We ask, could this maybe have been prevented through domestic violence services? And, you know, we ask questions like, how clear was it in this case that there was a domestic violence history, that there was a domestic violence problem in this case? Was it clear? Did we know that? And were the precautions taken by Cassie? And not, again, no victim blaming, but there's some evidence that there was a domestic violence history going back to 2018. So Cassi Carli's disappearance has focused the attention on issues of domestic violence, even though many details have not been released surrounding her death. Now, they haven't come out with the results of the autopsy yet. I think there's like a 99% chance it's going to be determined that it was a homicide, and then we'll find out what the cause of death was. You know, but when we talk about domestic violence, here's a couple that had a child in common. And so they had to deal with each other. She had to deal with this guy, even though she had a history of making reports against him. There was a domestic violence injunction against Marcus Spanevelo. On Sheriff Johnson asked if Carli and her ex-boyfriend Marcus Spanevelo had any domestic violence history. He said he believed Carli had filed the domestic violence injunction, and in fact, that did occur, and it went all the way back to 2018. I'll remind everyone that the child, Sailor, was 4 years old. So this goes back to probably before she was born, or right around the time she was born, that Cassie was threatened by this guy. And what can we do? What can women do that are threatened with these domestic violence situations? I'm going to play a little of an interview with a local TV station in regards to this. I'm going to share this on the screen and see what they have to say about it.
Sue, you're right. We don't know all the details, but I can tell you court records reveal several domestic-related cases between Cassi Carli and her ex, Marcus Spanevelo. Tonight, her family isn't alone in their grief or their mission to make sure others know there are resources available.
We have all been just sick, just absolutely sick about it, because this is what we do.
Sharon Rogers is the executive director of Safe Connections.
We need the victims out there to know that we're here and that they can reach out to us. They can have their attorney reach out to us.
The nonprofit provides supervised visitation and safe exchanges for families who are dealing with abuse or domestic violence. Santa Rosa County Sheriff Bob Johnson told reporters Sunday Cassi Carli had filed a domestic violence injunction against her ex, Marcus Spanevelo. I obtained a copy of that order, which was temporarily granted in 2018. I also found a slew of other domestic-related cases filed by the pair in at least 2 Northwest Florida counties. Rogers says it's important to share resources are out there after hearing Cassie was last seen after a custody exchange of her 4-year-old daughter, Sailor.
We pretty much stand between a victimized parent and their victimizer.
She tells me she wants to make sure moving forward, no other family has to go through what the Carlis are.
So nobody that is in a case which involves any allegation of domestic violence will pay anything. We will get them set up, talk to both parents, and figure out a time and day that they need to exchange. We work with what the court has given them. what our hours are, what their limitations are, and we find the safest time to be able to do their child exchange.
The nonprofit has 3 locations in Okaloosa and Walton counties where people can also safely make these exchanges. Rogers says they are planning to create a 4th location in Navarre.
This is definitely Cassie driven. We just feel like that's somewhere that has now presented a huge need that we can't walk away from.
Well, folks, you see that there's some nonprofits that are out there to help women who are victims of domestic violence. I think that possibly part of the problem is being afraid to ask or being afraid to go and tell them that you have this problem. Obviously, Cassie had filed reports with the police. So it's on record. So why not use these organizations that can help people? It's just so important, especially in a case like this where you have a child in common. How does a woman stay safe? The police can't protect you. An order of protection is a piece of paper. It doesn't protect you. You have to, though, when there is violations of these orders or there's threats made against you, you have to liaison with the police. You have to have them as partners with you, because we see what happens when these cases are allowed to get out of hand, out of control. We see that it can end in horrible violence and death. And it's just, we're seeing too many of these cases on a national level. It's just horrendous. And Cassie's family and her friends, they knew what was going on here. And I'm not blaming anyone. However, what can we do in the future? How can we help prevent this in the future so this doesn't happen again? And of course, when I say it doesn't happen again, it's going to happen again. It's probably happening right now as I speak. There's these relationships, but how can we prevent them? How can we prevent the violence from escalating? We speak about in these domestic violence cases, no one should be getting hit by anyone. No one should be taking any abuse or threats, harassment, assault, menacing, reckless endangerment, disorderly conduct, any of those things. Those are part of the domestic violence offenses: harassment, assault, disorderly conduct, assault, reckless endangerment, menacing. Those are the domestic violence offenses that reports should be made when someone is the victim of it. And it's just, in this case, it's just horrendous because it's clear that something was going on here of a nefarious nature. And did Cassie report it? And obviously she had been on top of it. However, it escalated and it was getting worse and worse. And perhaps that wasn't reported. I understand, and I know she told her family that she was terrified over Marcus. I'm going to play a little of this, his arraignment, and we'll see what he's all about.
Your Honor, he's got a fugitive from justice charge taken out by Trooper Cotton with the Tennessee Highway Patrol. The defendant is charged on the oath of a credible person by a judge in the state of Florida. The defendant does have issued warrants for his arrest with full extradition. The defendant was stopped for a traffic violation that occurred on I-65 in Murray County. And it's got the whole from Santa Rosa County, Florida, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Spenavello, are you willing to waive extradition?
Not at this moment.
Okay. Well, they have a,
There's some things,
sir,
there are some things that need to be resolved before willing to go that route.
okay. Well, I'll put you back on the review docket for 13 April. And then we'll meet again to review your status as far as extradition. Okay,
I'm just trying to make sure that my daughter is taken care of with the people that, that I'm living here with.
okay.
That's all.
April the 13th, we'll review your extradition status at that time. Under rules and procedure, they have 10 days in which to notify the state of their intent to extradite. And so we'll check it back on April the 13th.
All right.
All right.
So there you have it. His arraignment hearing is due in court again on the 13th. And here he is. He appears, even in looking at his body language, he appears to be an angry individual. He got all choked up there when he was talking about his daughter. You know, if he was really concerned about his daughter, he wouldn't have been violent to his baby's mama. You know, it's like a horrendous situation. You know, folks, if you like this channel, if you like Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories, and you're not subscribed to us, please go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell. If you want to support us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel members. If you see the folks in the chat in the green font, they're part of our YouTube family. Rocky Renee, if God forbid he is in charge or convicted of murder or eventually gets out of prison, would he immediately be taken by ICE and deported? You know, I can't really answer that, Rocky Renee. Yes, that used to be the case. I don't know how powerful ICE is anymore. It seems like not many people are getting deported. It used to be if you were convicted of a felony and you served your time here, it was automatic deportation upon completion of your sentence. I don't know if that's the case anymore. Folks, this Monday, and we're going to have Leslie Morgan Steiner on, who is she's been on before. She was on with Dr. Debbie Goodman last week. And we want to do a deeper dive into her story, her domestic violence story, because it's really a profound story. And here's this woman, Harvard University graduate, the author of 4 books, very well educated, upper middle class. Not that that matters. I'm just pointing all of this stuff out, that domestic violence can happen to anyone. Sometimes we look at it like, oh, it only happens to lower class people, people that are poor. Well, that's not true. It happens in all levels, different economic levels, poor, middle class, upper middle class, rich people, white people, black people, Asian people. It crosses all lines. And it's a real horrendous situation in our society, you know, and we got to find out, and we got to see if we can help here too at Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. If we can help bringing on guests that can help and advise and educate, because it's such an important thing. As I speak right now, I guarantee there's people in the chat that are or have been victims of domestic violence. And we don't want to see any more victims like Cassie Carli, because it seems that it can be prevented. It can be, but in no way am I saying it's easy. It's a very difficult road for the prevention of this. Obviously, look, in this case, Marcus Spanevelo had rights. The court gave him visitation rights. He was allowed to see his daughter, you know, and as a result, his baby's mother, you know, if say there was no child in common, she probably would have chose to have nothing whatsoever to do with him. However, because there was a child in common, she had to deal with him and put herself in harm's way. And it's so unfortunate that that's what occurs. But you know, the father does, in fact, have rights in these cases. So how, as women, potential domestic violence victims, how do you protect yourselves? We're going to have a number of different guests come on and talk about that and how they did it and what they recommend. What is their advice? Um, those are some of the questions we're going to probably try to have answered. Lynn Scrattish, it's been reported that he was not paying child support. That's that is also, Lynn, it's a direct violation of the family court order, and you can be held in contempt of court for not paying child support. Is it uncommon? But I don't know the status, whether they would arrest someone for that, because it's sort of counterproductive. If you arrest someone and put them in jail, what means do they then have to ever pay it? That they're going to be out of work because they're going to be in jail. Rockin' Renee, thank you, Bill, for your answer and for bringing attention to things we can change to make our lives safer. It's so heartbreaking to see these cases escalate to the point of murder. I mean, it's unnecessary. It should never, ever happen. And again, very complicated. Look at these private organizations offering their services free of charge. They'll send someone with you to meet your former boyfriend now that you have to do a custody exchange. They'll send someone with you to keep you safe. Why wouldn't you take those services? Why wouldn't you ally yourself with those services? Very, very important. Milwaukee civilian, how you doing? Peter Pranzo, single mom of 4. Alicia B, good to see you guys. Janine Dove, Chef Lady, Lynn Skadish. I'm just calling all you guys out in the chat. Thank you so much for being here today in New York and up in Westchester. It's a nasty, rainy, cold day right now. Tammy O'Brien, he should go to jail for non-support. Yeah, I don't know, Tammy, the specific laws behind that. I know it's contempt of court. Could be he'd be arrested, yeah, but many judges would maybe choose not to arrest him because then it sort of takes away the means. They could force him into court at some point. Then an arrest might be warranted. B. Jalibra, is that? I'm a victim of DV. The laws have to change. I moved hours away because he got out on bond on a felony too. That's horrible. I mean, I can't even imagine the fear that a lot of you guys have gone through in dealing with this and trying to. Angel Donmeyer, I'm going to read this. In Pennsylvania, you get jailed and license suspended for unpaid child support. That's good. I mean, it brings them to court, makes them answer for why they're not paying. Tommy O'Brien and murder, most certainly. Why was he allowed visitation? Lynn Scrattish is asking. Well, the baby's father has certain rights, the right of visitation with his child. So that's the answer. But, perhaps knowing the background of this, the judge should have said it had to be visitation with other people there because he was clearly dangerous. Cassie should not have gone to do the custody exchange alone, knowing how dangerous he was. I mean, when we saw the family talking about that he had threatened her with a gun, he had threatened her numerous times. Richella Pranzo, thank you for this comment. There is a legal support system here on Long Island called Vibes. They help all DV violence victims and have an outstanding reputation. Richella, thank you for that. I'm sure almost every jurisdiction has a nonprofit that'll help. Also, police departments can point you in the right direction. Family court, of course, should be pointing you in the right direction if it so reaches family court. Tammy O'Brien, I'm sorry. Hope her family gets Saylor and they sue for non-support after he goes down for murder. Folks, that's another part of this case is that it hasn't yet, the autopsy results haven't been released yet. We're all waiting on that, which will give the manner and the cause of death. The manner being they'll rule it a homicide and the cause could be strangulation, blunt trauma, whatever it may be. I don't want to, you know, predict what it's going to be, but that'll come out. And then I think, and I could be wrong about this. I'm wrong lots of times. I think they may be waiting to get closer to the extradition dates to release the information and to use that in conjunction with getting him extradited back to Florida, where the case is undoubtedly going to be tried, I would think. Milwaukee civilian. I used to work for DCFS in Illinois during the 90s. We could only attach or garnish wages. We could never allow to let law enforcement know, even when we knew that there was abuse. Is that the family court, Milwaukee civilian? I'm not sure of. Rock and Renee, they will not withhold visitation because of late child support. That's something many falsely believe. So, something I learned some new things through doing this show. A lot of you folks have some experience with this. Marlene Barone, good afternoon. Good to see you. There's many people out there that maybe even domestic violence experts. Infamous truth teller, police off the cuff. You said, well, you say police off the court, but we're off the cuff. You can say off the court. That's okay. Sorry, I'm late. I'm a domestic and violence survivor and proud of it. Well, good. I'm glad. Of course, I'm glad you're a survivor, and the wisdom you gained for that, even though it's a horrible situation, the wisdom that you gained for it, you can, I'm sure, advise lots of people, and I'm sure you have probably saved lots of people's lives. Marilyn Mineta. I'm a domestic violence survivor for 35 years, finally got out and never looked back. God bless. I'm so happy you guys got out safely. Marlene Barone again. Alicia B. The address of a battered woman's shelters are often not public to keep the ladies and staff safe from the abusers. A precinct that I worked in had one of those safe places for domestic violence victims to stay right across the street. And I had mentioned numerous times on this show that many times in custody exchanges, they would come into the precinct and exchange the child right in front of the desk. Probably the safest way is to do the exchange right in a police precinct. Where else could you be safer? And then, when they do the exchange, the mom can wait till the husband leaves and get safely out of there. Pauline Robb, my domestic violence incident ended a bloody double murder. If I didn't escape with my 2-year-old son, it would have been the two of us, no doubt. This was 1980, and I still have severe trauma for it. Well, Pauline, I'm sorry that you have trauma from that, but you survived, thank God, and you're here and you're stronger. Infamous truth teller, just curious if you happen to get my emails of the PDFs about facts about domestic abuse. If you didn't, that's okay, but I sent them to you I did not get them. I looked at my email today. I didn't see any PDFs in there. Infamous truth teller, if you want to resend them, I surely will read them. Again, this Monday at 9 p.m., we're going to have Leslie Morgan Steiner, author, mother, of course, graduate of Harvard University, a very successful writer, 4 books out, and a domestic violence victim, is going to be back on the show at 9 p.m. And we're going to talk about her harrowing experiences. Rhonda Husaro, I hope I said that correctly. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. My daughter is going through this right now, and it's a nightmare with the court system. Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, the court system tries to take into consideration both sides, but in doing that, they may endanger one of the sides, and it is a horrible situation. Look, domestic violence is never pretty, never ever pretty. Folks, infamous truth teller, it takes a long time for that light switch to go off because of the mental abuse, the psychological abuse. It takes a long time to undo what they did. And she's, of course, referring to the abuser, what the abuser has done to the person. And yeah, it's just it's a horrendous situation, and no one wishes this on anyone. Milwaukee Civilian Bill, this is a remarkable series of shows from Police Off the Cuff. I have been impressed, saddened, and filled with hope by all the people sharing their stories. Well, thank you, Milwaukee Civilian. One of the reasons that we are on here is to try to help people and share our knowledge about certain things. We have, some expertise, expert status in some areas and not in other areas. I'm definitely not an expert in domestic violence. I've seen a lot of it as a police sergeant, an NYPD police officer, and unfortunately, some of the cases that we had ended up in murders, the domestic violence cases. But I think that the way the police department and police departments have changed the way that they respond to domestic violence has resulted in a lot less incidences of murder, because early on in the abuse, the perpetrator or the abuser gets arrested, and I believe that arrest prevents murders. I really do, especially when it becomes multiple arrests. The person gets arrested early on, gets released, order of protection is issued, say he goes back, and the court allows it, supervised visitation, and he violates it again and gets arrested again. The criminal justice system doesn't play with domestic violence the way it was handled back in the 60s and 70s. Lieutenant Pete Pranzo could probably tell us that it wasn't very effective. There was a lot of domestic violence murders, cases that escalated because of the way the police department and police departments handled it. Infamous truth teller, you have copies of your documents, because the first thing an abuser will do is take your documents, your birth certificates, your IDs. If you do leave, you have to have copies. Good advice, infamous truth teller. Rockin' Renee, I think it's Rockin' Renee. Angel Moya enforce payments, but if they try to prevent visitation, they will be found in contempt of the custody order, contempt for violations of custody orders in Pennsylvania. Look, every jurisdiction, I think, every state has different policies in dealing with domestic violence, and it's never a pretty thing. It's always dealing with the system is not an easy thing. It's just it can be a horrible thing dealing with the court system, and it can be a horrendous thing, as I said, because the court system has to look at both sides of the fence, even though one person may be maybe a lot more innocent than the other, and be the one aggrieved more. And I would think in these cases, most of the time, the woman needs the protection of the criminal justice system. The woman needs the protection of the courts. And it gets to be just a scary thing that they have to deal with these abusers. And it's horrible. It's really horrible, folks. And that's, again, as I said, we're going to have other women come on our show, perhaps domestic violence experts, surely domestic violence victims that are going to tell their story, because this is an important topic. It's so important. Kathy Bates, a single mom before, I agree, or when you told us it's not considered DV when the other person is also a firefighter and they beat out of you in New York City. I didn't get that whole story, but look, cops and firefighters are involved in domestic violence incidents. And I'll tell you one thing: if you're a police officer in New York City and you're involved in that, they will not play with you. They will pull your guns. They will put you on modified assignment, and they will make sure that you follow the letter of the law. And it's happened to many people. And it's the days of police and firefighters getting away with stuff like that. I don't think it's occurring anymore. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Again, if you like this show from a police perspective, covering law enforcement topics, true crime, real crime stories, please go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell. And again, if you want to help us out, and you can be part of our Patreon or part of our YouTube family membership. Lisa, how do we get custody judges to recognize these red flags? A friend going through similar issues. A DV case got downgraded to jostling charge. Horrible. Yeah, I would agree with that. If you study domestic violence and you know a lot about it, it doesn't get better. It gets worse. It escalates. And the longer it's allowed to go on, the more dangerous it gets for the people involved in the domestic violence cases. And it's something that, again, the police, the courts, it's such a really sensitive situation. And it's something that, but again, it's a complicated situation. We saw the whole case with Cassie Carli, and how at first it started out that she was missing, and it was the facts and circumstances was that she went missing after she had gone to meet her baby's father to do a custody exchange. And then, 24 hours had gone by and her father reported her missing. The police went to visit Marcus Spanevelo in Birmingham, Alabama. At that point, he had custody of their 4-year-old child. And Cassie was missing, right? And I believe at that point, that was on a Wednesday, the child was removed from him. That was the first thing that Phil and I said in this case, is like, the first thing we would do is take the child from him. There's no way. I mean, if they allowed him to have the child, couldn't he potentially kill the child? Yeah. And that was one of the first things we said, is that the child has to be removed. Infamous truth teller. Domestic violence doesn't discriminate. Male, female, rich, poor, homeless, not homeless, ugly, cute, beautiful, famous. Domestic violence is in every aspect of everybody's life, regardless of the economics. Yeah, I had touched upon that before, infamous truth teller, and you were 100% correct. Rock and Renee, many times I'll plead out to a lesser charge. We have a basketball coach in my small town that had a restraining order and 5 charges for violation of the restraining order. They pled it all. The other thing is a lot of times we can hear about cases and not know about all the facts and circumstances. So we can't always look. There's cases where the male involved in the case is innocent and has nothing to do with being violent. That's just a bad relationship, and that happened also. But we're here to advise women and advise people that could be getting abused how to deal with this. Amanda Causey, for some reason, an ex-partner's character and way of relationships isn't considered for children, and that's just so messed up when they assassinate character in every other way in family court. Look, I'm sure there's incidents where there's a husband and a wife, or a dad and his child and the significant other, when the male is the more sane of the two individuals. Of course, that happens, and that's why, judges have to be wise and experienced and listen to all the evidence. They can't just rule one way because of gender. And it's, courts usually rule that the child is better off with the mother, with the female parent. That just is the way it is. Karen Kennedy, women learn about narcissistic personality disorder. Not all psychopaths are narcissistics, but all psychopaths are narcissists. It's dangerous when you decide to leave. Karen, I'm glad that you said that. That was what Leslie Morgan Steiner, when we had her on the show, she said the most dangerous part of a domestic violence situation is when you choose to leave, when the breakup occurs. And that's when the violence can escalate. And that's when domestic violence victim needs the most help and needs the most guidance, needs the most advice, needs people around her. So you're 100% right, and thank you so much for pointing that out. It's these situations, again, there are private agencies that deal with domestic violence that will help you out, that will get you a place to live. And obviously, most of these folks, when they're going through these breakups, they don't have the finances to go live at another location. They may be the significant other, may be the breadwinner, and they may not have a job. So where are they going to go? Where are they going to turn to? And this has to be done clandestinely, on the DL, as we used to say, on the down low. When I used to try to teach my students the word surreptitiously, what does it mean to be surreptitious? I would say it means to be on the down low. And then they understood the meaning of surreptitious. It means on the down low. I said, okay, I'll take that as a definition. You got to have some humor in there every once in a while, right? Let's see. Amanda Causey, or seems sane just because no emotion. Women usually have shaken emotion. Moonlight View. The line between right versus wrong should be made abundantly clear in custody and domestic violence cases via the court judges. Yes, but Moonlight View, we always count on judges to be smart, to be wise, but they're not always that. Rockin' Renee, yes, my son, who was on his team, came home with welts and bruises covering his back after a practice due to that coach. Wow, I don't think I would put up with that. I think that coach would have been getting handcuffs put on him that same day. I mean, that's crazy. Barbara Ann, for me, the most dangerous time was when I told him I wanted out, was becoming more independent, and he panicked. He was no longer in control. Well, Barbara Ann, thank you for sharing that. And we had spoke about that before, that the most dangerous part, and Leslie Morgan Steiner, when she was a guest on our show, said that exact thing. The most dangerous part is when you choose to leave, when you confront the situation. Eddie Stackpole, retired NYPD detective. Complicated for police, too. Victims turn on police, protecting their abuser. 100%, Eddie, I have spoken about that one of the most dangerous jobs for a police officer to respond to is a domestic violence incident in someone's home. And you have to separate the couple, and then you have to determine what the hell happened. Because a lot of times once the police get there, the person who was abused doesn't want to tell them the truth because the other person is there and they're intimidated by that other person. They're afraid, or they have something called Stockholm Syndrome. And it exists in domestic violence incidents also, where you identify with your abuser, and that happens lots of times. That's one of the first things we do, or we try to do in domestic violence incidents, and it's very difficult sometimes in a small apartment, is to separate the couple and try to get them out of hearing each other, the distance that they can hear what each other is saying, and have each get to tell their story of what occurred, and not an easy thing. We all followed the case of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, and to everyone that watches that everyone that watches that video of when the Moab police, that they were highly criticized for the way they handled that. It was a little bit scary. It was a little bit scary that you could see now when you watch it, you could see how scared she was. How she seemed like this. She was afraid to tell what really happened because I think she was afraid of Brian. And you watch it now, knowing what happened, it's so heartbreaking. It's just, and we had shown we had shown that video so many times that it was. I want to in fact bring it on the screen now because it just reminds us of another time, and just now that we know what occurred, it just is really
Subject
horrible.
just hit the curb. Correction, speed limit is 15.
And camping got the stuff, supplies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
You got it, buddy. I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no, you're fine. I'm going to go ahead and close your door. Okay? Why don't you come over here? SO229. I had the female that was on the passenger seat separated from the male. Keys are on the hood. You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, "I'm sorry that I'm so mean," because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him. I just like. I guess my vibe is like I'm like in a bad mood, and I was just saying I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That was my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country, and I'm trying to start a blog. I have a blog and stuff, so I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like I don't know. He's like down there. I don't know. We've just been fighting all morning, and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because
he
of
told
your
me
OCD?
told me I needed to calm down. Yeah, but I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time, and he really stresses me out, and this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
All righty. Like I said, you're not in any trouble. So just go ahead and take a seat. What's that?
You talked to Gabrielle, right?
Yeah, I just spoke to her.
Yeah.
So, you want to do me a favor? Let's go ahead and get you to step out of the vehicle. All righty? Come on over here. You're not in any trouble right now.
Well, folks, we all know what happened. As we watch that, it's heartbreaking to know what it became after that. And when you watch Gabby, you can see all the signs of abuse during this incident. And we had spoken numerous times, and when this occurred, that we had thought that the police did a pretty good job. They spent an hour and 15 minutes on this job. The amount of time that you would never get in New York City in a job like this, they were able to separate them. Many people thought that they, when they dissected all what had occurred, that perhaps they both should have been arrested, and maybe that would have prevented the inevitability of what occurred in the future, which was, of course, the murder of Gabby Petito. Very, 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 very tough, but horrible. Folks, I'm going to take a quick commercial break here. John Beatty Law, www.jbeattylaw.com. John Beatty is a renowned personal injury attorney. He's also retired as a decorated NYPD sergeant. John comes from a proud NYPD and FDNY family. He was an active sergeant in Brooklyn North and supervised in the legal bureau. John is a proud member of the Honor Legion and the Blue Knights. John Beatty litigates across the country for serious injured victims and has helped recover over $200 million for grieving families. Call John now for a free consultation. John Beatty, 917-797-9520. Or, of course, www.jbeattylaw.com. We're getting a lot of lawyers, advertising with us. Of course, we have the biggest attorney here with Joe Murray. Joe Murray, who's been supporting this show. Joe Murray, attorney at law, jmurray-law.com. Joe's a fine defense attorney, a criminal defense attorney, and he's also a retired NYPD member of the service, was a police officer for 15 years. You can reach Joe Murray at joe@jmurray-law.com or on his website, jmurray-law.com. And Joe Murray, his cell is 718-514-3855. That's Joe Murray. And folks, we have another sponsor, Converus, the secret to quickly hiring the best police officers before your competition does. With an extremely limited job candidate pool, law enforcement agencies must have to quickly identify and hire qualified police officers before any other agency does. That's why nearly 70 U.S. agencies have updated their hiring process to include iDetect, a fast, affordable, non-invasive, unbiased, and automated lie detector that accurately identifies lies by watching the eyes. iDetect also helps solve crimes. Converus CEO Todd Mickelson shared stories about how iDetect is changing the way the world detects deception. Remember, the eyes don't lie. Converus.com, 1-801-331-8840 or info@converus.com. So, folks, we were spending time talking about domestic violence and how important it is. It seems like every day you hear about another case of someone murdered in regards to a domestic violence case. It's just a horrendous situation. We're trying to help people out there, get people educated on the warning signs about some of the things. Amanda Causey, not all judges are DV aware and all its ways, so no one is accountable for orders that make women victims or another. I'm not sure what you mean there, Amanda. Infamous truth teller. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter what you try to eliminate to prevent arguments. Abusers and controlling people always have find something to complain about, make us feel it's our fault. Look, in abusive relationships, there's only one solution, and that's to get out of the abusive relationship, to leave. And easy to say, more complicated to do. But an abusive relationship doesn't get better. It gets worse. It escalates and it gets worse all the time. So we've seen these cases, and of course, Cassi Carli, heartbreaking case. And here's a case, and again, always we Monday morning quarterback. Here's a case that shouldn't have occurred. All the warning signs were there that this was a toxic relationship, and unfortunately, she had to deal with him because of their child. How else can she deal with this guy? Extremely toxic relationship, and the courts had ordered that that he got to see his child. So they had a custody exchange, I guess at least twice a month. and which put her in quite a bit of danger, and now we're learning that there are agencies, there are private groups that will accompany women to do these custody exchanges so that they feel safe. Phil and I had recommended that you take the child into a police precinct and do the exchange inside a police precinct. On the night that Cassie disappeared, the location where they were going to do the exchange had changed. That potentially was a red flag. And this case just turned out to be a horror. Again, we still don't know. The authorities undoubtedly at this point know the results of the autopsy. However, we still have not been apprised of it. We still have not been told that the manner and the cause of death it has been determined. It just hasn't been released by the police authorities, and that is probably an investigative strategy, a prosecutorial strategy. But we, in fact, don't know about it, and we should find as soon as it's released. We'll find out, and we'll do another show on that and what it means to the case. Infamous truth teller. I was trying to say is that it's classic behavior of the abused to say it's their fault because they know later on it will probably cause an argument if they told the truth, but it doesn't matter. Infamous truth teller. So true. I guess that's why you're called the infamous truth teller, because you absolutely 100% tell the truth. Schmitty. Same if you meet someone to sell an item, meet at police parking lot where there are always people watching. Those police parking lots going to be packed with all the people going there to feel safe for different reasons. Copper Petals, when will they release autopsy report and the cause of death? Copper Petals, your guess is as good as mine. I think the police are holding that there might be some reason, investigative reason they're holding the release of that. I can't answer for them. It should be released soon. That's all I could say. I cannot. His next, Marcus Spanevello's next court appearance is on the 13th. So it usually takes about, when someone fights extradition, it takes about 30 days for the county that's trying to extradite the perpetrator to draw up the paperwork and for the judge to rule on it. So that could be why they're holding back the results of the autopsy. That's a guess of mine. I don't have any insider information. Infamous truth teller, if you're ever in a public place or where there's other people and you're being abused, the tip is to never yell. Never yell help. Yell because people will come out looking for the fire. There's a lot of because there's still a stigma of people saying if they hear somebody yelling out, they don't want to get involved because it's like, oh, it's just a relationship. I don't want to get involved. Infamous truth teller, look, I think that if you are in danger in public, drawing attention to yourself is absolutely the best thing you can do to get people to come to your assistance. Pink Nanum, hello from Oxford, UK. Good to see there's still people from the UK watching. So, folks, again, as I spoke about before, Leslie Morgan Steiner, an author, a domestic violence survivor, a speaker. She's coming on the show again this Monday night at 9 p.m. to talk about her experience and about, in regards, to this case and what it means and how domestic violence victims can be safe in the future. Schmitty, or a neighboring place. Cameras from police stations stretch far and wide. Around here, they do anyway, upgraded after the Ferguson incident. So, folks, we're just trying to help out and give some. Anyone wants to reach me, you can email me at policeoffthecuff.com. I'll put it in the chat. You know, folks, I just want everyone to know we get sent cases all the time, and we can't like do every case that was sent. So please don't feel bad if there's a case that you send me and I can't feature it on here. As I said, there's just so much time and so many cases, and we can't feature every case. And there may be a case that's near and dear to your heart, but we can't do everyone. So just please understand that. So, folks, I hope we covered a lot of this today and help some people out. Maybe some people that are in the midst of this stuff. I hope that we get through and maybe save someone's life. You know, if that's a possibility, and if I help to do that, that makes me feel really good that I could help someone out. As I said, if you want to talk to me or talk to Phil or Mark, you know, you can policeoffthecuff.com is our email. Excuse me, police off the cuff. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. Let me put it in the chat. It's actually the website is policeoffthecuff.com. The email is policeoffthecuff1. Oh, excuse me, it's not .com. It's at email.com. Okay, folks, you got that? So it's policeoffthecuff1@gmail.com. One of these days I'll get used to all this internet stuff and email and all this other stuff, you know, one of these days. So, folks, again, thank you so much for listening today. I know it's up in Westchester where I'm. It's ugly, nasty day. So it was my pleasure to come and talk to you guys. So, folks, hopefully I'll see you soon. Till we meet again, have a safe day. Bye now.
One episode, just saying enough.